Welcome to Quilting in the Valley. We're here today to do a small video, a tutorial on how to do a Minky blanket. Now, when you see what I'm working with, it's in miniature, but you would do the same technique that we're doing here on the large version. So come on with me and let's go ahead and start. So what we're going to do today is I have cut a sample. This would be the backing of your Minky quilt. Now that will be 60 by however big you want that quilt to be. So you would have the backing, you're going to lay the backing down, and then you're going to cut different sizes of strips. We've kind of cut the same sizes all the way through, but on your quilt that you're doing, it would be, you might have a 12-inch strip, and then you'd have a 3-inch strip. So you can adjust those along on how you would want it. The first thing that I would tell you is, because we're going to be using a 505, Sullivan spray works well, different spray adhesives. So you're going to use this. And because of that, I would suggest that you cover your cutting mat so that you don't ruin it. It is washable. The spray adhesive is washable, and so it won't, you can wash it off and that, but it can get pretty sticky. It also, around your floor, because it can overshoot and get onto the floor. So just kind of spray cautiously is what I would say. You are then going to put your backing all the way down, and you're going to lay it flat on a surface. So you're going to need a fairly large surface in order to do this. And then I am going to spray. This is going to be my first piece. I am going to spray that with the spray adhesive. And I'm only going to do a light spray. I don't need a huge amount. And then I'm going to center that on my piece, on the background. Just like this. And then you can, what you would do too is what I would do on your background piece, find the center and draw a line on the center, and then line that first strip in the middle of that, so that you can have a straight line. So then we're going to go to the second piece. I'm going to lay this down. I've sprayed my first strip down. I'm going to lay the second strip on, just like this. And your strips might be longer. They might be very close to the same width as your backing. It all depends on what you cut it. Now, we're going to take this over to the machine. On the machine, I have an 80-12 Microtex needle in there. I've also have my walking foot on. Now, this is for people that maybe don't have a dual feed on their machine, but you have a walking foot that you can add that you use for quilting. I've placed that on there. I am going to, I'm just using my regular Aurifil thread. I'm also going to, I like to adjust my stitch length just a little bit bigger. Maybe 2.9, maybe even a 3 millimeter. And then I'm going to come in here. And my walking foot, I just pretty well kind of judge it by this on the edge. I will lay the edge of my walking foot along the edge of the fabric, and that pretty well is a 1/2 inch seam. Okay, so then I'm going to go down, start sewing. You're using a walking foot because without it, Minky is just kind of, it can be all over the place. And I just kind of go with a slow, you know, medium speed, lining up those edges as I go. You'll find that you'll have Minky in your nose, in your mouth, all over. It can be messy, but they are so nice. You'll also notice that I have no batting in this. I don't need batting with Minky. Come on. Okay. Well, all right. I'm gonna bring that up. And I'll just cut it. Now I have my 2 layers together. I am going to take this back to my mat. I'm going to lay it out, and I am going to spray again very lightly. I don't need a huge amount. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to fold it over. I like to start in the center and move out, flattening that as I go. All right, we're going to do just 3 strips today. You would continue to do exactly what I'm doing. So I would work on one side of the center, and then I like to go to the other side. Some people might just keep going all the way this way, and that works too. So now I have another piece. I have my red that I'm going to add, and we're going to put that right alongside there, just like that. And then I'm moving back over to the sewing machine, and we will start sewing. Lining up the edge of my foot. Stop it. There we go. Making sure that everything is laying smooth. I'm going to go in here for a minute because I think something's not set up. All right, now we're going to go back over to the cutting mat, and we're going to continue this process for as many strips until you can cover your piece. Now, I could actually go ahead, I guess, and do that. Let me try this. So when you have done sewing all of your strips on, and you're happy with the coverage of the back, you're going to have, it'll look somewhat like this. It'll have different widths and everything, but it'll have the same type of an appearance. When I want to show you the back of it, so you can flip that over, and here is the back, and you can see all of the quilting lines are right here on here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to trim this back all the way around. I'm going to trim it evenly. So I can, at this point, take off the paper and set that aside. Now I would use a ruler. I I might even lift this up and spread, just making sure that that's smooth. But I can cut and just line up here. Now, I would use a ruler if I was doing an actual big one, so that my pieces are lined up nicely. I am not going to worry about that little bit right there, I don't think. Oh, magically, I have a ruler. I love how that happens. Alrighty. You can see how much easier it is with a ruler. I am going to kind of line up this right here and just get that so that it is squared. All right. Do this side. So we now have a blanket. We have the top. This is the back. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add our binding along the blanket. So I'm just going to change my plate. You know what I'm going to do first? I'm just going to cut my bobbin thread. And I'm putting on the 9mm plate is what I'm doing right now. Okay, so there we have that. So I'm going to take my long strip of binding fabric. It's just another strip of your Minky. Now you, on a regular quilt, you're going to have to sew your ends together. I would not do a mitered. I would sew them just straight across, adding, like if I was to add, let's say these two pieces, I would do it right sides together, and then I would just sew straight across, and do that for as many as you need to get around the edge of your quilt. Okay? So, you're going to start, and I would start about halfway down. This one is a little bit, I think maybe this size is going to be better. I'm going to straight stitch, and I'm going to put this binding on just like I would any other quilt, except that I am putting right sides together, which is what you would do, but you're not going to fold this over, is what I guess is what I'm trying to say. You're going to just have one layer. And I'm going to use a 1/2 inch seam. And I'm going to kind of judge and make sure that I end at about a 1/2 inch. going to fold it over. You can see where that walking foot just moves this right along. So you've got your miters. If you look on here, there they are. You're going to just take this to the back. You would sew, you could, let's see if I can do this. I'm just going to sew these two ends together. Alright, hopefully that will be the right. I'm going to trim off all of these strings. Worked pretty good. All right. So now I want to finish stitching this area where I sewed the two pieces together. And I'm going to just go in here and finish sewing that so that that seam is that it's closed. You'll find that Minky does some slipping a little bit, but it's not too bad. All right, so now you have your binding all sewn on all the way around. You have your corners mitered. We've sewn down the last part, attaching the two ends together of the binding, and then we've stitched that section down to our quilt. So we're going to turn this over, and I am going to line up the edge of my binding strip to the last stitching line. And I'm just going to line that up right along there. And then I am on, at this point, I still have in my walking foot, and I'm going to put it to zigzag. I would go up to maybe like a 4.2 stitch width. Now let's go ahead and start this. I'm going to line up the edge of my foot, the inside of my foot, with the edge of the binding, and just keeping it right on the sewing, the last sewing line. Okay, let's go. And I'm just stitching that down. I kind of want a longer stitch length, so I'm going to put it up to about 2.25. And again, I would not be using white thread like I have in here, but for purposes of you being able to see, I'm going to have that on there. And what I'm kind of doing right here is I'm just taking this down so that I can get somewhat of a miter right at the corner here. Well, that hurt. Okay, let's go a little bit here. Turn it. Turn again. And you can see that I'm on the back side of the quilt. So I'm stitching that binding on the back. And when I get to those corners, I'm just kind of trying to get that miter in there nicely. Let me see here. Try this. If you were to turn this over and like we do on a normal quilt, and you had this doubled and then sewed it on, it would be way too thick for you to even sew it down, and you'd have a real mess with doing it that way. So that's why you keep it at a single. You also would make sure that your binding, so when you turn it over, your binding is the right width to actually just meet right up with those edges. And I'm coming around to the last little bit. You can see that the Minky doesn't really stretch at all. And so we can cut our thread. And so there it is. You'll see a little bit, this, when you have the right width of binding, this will all line right up. There's a little bit of pulling you can see right here. And obviously I pulled it a little bit too much on this side. So other than that, it's a great method of putting binding on there. Makes a wonderful baby blanket. It's easy to make and quick. And so, kind of take these ideas and don't be afraid to work with Minky. Minky is not hard to work with. It's very easy to work with, especially some of the Minkies that we have here. They have a two-way stretch. They're just a beautiful Minky. So don't be afraid to do it, and just step out. And we have a lot of different quilt kits here with Minky that's all already pre-cut. So come on in, visit us, and try your hand at Minky. And we will see you in another video soon. Thank you for being with us. Bye-bye.